Hi, everyone. Hello. How's it going? Good. Everybody have a good first day? Thumbs up? Some thumbs up? Good, good. Glad to hear it. If there's anything that you guys need to do with anything, feel free to approach us. Not anything, but regarding the general framework of the workshops. If you need anything, don't forget, we are here to meet your needs to the extent that we can. So don't forget that. My name's David Simpson. I'm the program director here at the Work Center, and I'm glad you're here. This is the first of 3 faculty events that we'll have this week. Tonight, we're going to have a wonderful lineup, but first, I would like to do a shout out. Stephanie Seals, who is our culture and belonging specialist this summer, just found out that she got an offer on her second children's book, so I think she deserves a round of applause, even though she's not in the room. But yeah, that's a really great achievement. Tonight we're going to hear from writer and performer, poet, Renaissance artist Celeste Lecesne, and visual artist Kate Clark. Celeste is going to do something up here that doesn't involve a podium, and then Kate is going to do an artist talk, and then we'll do a joint Q&A up here after they make their presentations. After the event, Celeste will be signing books at the back of the room, and the books are for sale. Books from other faculty of the week who are here, and there's also a lot of books of former fellows in the library in the gallery. So I encourage you to check it out when you have a chance. The show that's in the gallery right now, Everyone We Know Is Here, is a terrific show curated by former Falk Fellow Heidi Hahn and consisting entirely of work of former fellows. It's beautiful stuff. Don't miss it. I'd like to give a big shout out to East End Books, who manage our bookstore. As always, they do an excellent job. They're never here. I don't know why I say that every time, but I think it's important to do so. One time Jeff is going to show up, and then he's going to appreciate it. The restrooms are down the hall on the left, 2 of them. There's a sign-up sheet. Hang on a second. I'm a little disappointed. There's a sign-up sheet there for the student reading on Thursday night, which is the best night of the week. Not a single person has signed up. Nope. There's number 10. Oh, all right, somebody signed up on line 10. Okay, I missed that. I take it back. I encourage you all to fill in the 9 rows before, not line 10 person, and all the rows afterwards. It's a great night. You have the most welcoming, embracing hometown crowd imaginable. It'll be a wonderful experience. You will not regret it for a second if you get up here and read on Thursday night. So I highly encourage you to sign up, because tomorrow I'll be mad if there's not. And I know it's hard. You think, mad? You can't imagine that, can you? But okay, I'll stop. So first thing I'd like to do is we're going to have Celeste come up and present first. But to introduce Celeste, I'm going to welcome to the stage. What? Oh, yes, turn your phones off. Thank you. I got a furious signal from the back. So if you haven't turned your phones off, please do so. So we're going to invite fellow faculty member and visual artist Kate Clark to introduce Lecesne. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah. How's that? Better? It is completely my honor to introduce Celeste, but I have to read because there is so much to say. So please excuse me for that. But Celeste Lecesne is a playwright, actor, screenwriter, author, producer, and a 2023 Guggenheim Fellow. The New York Times has ranked him among the most talented solo performers of his or any generation. Celeste wrote the short film Trevor, which won an Academy Award for Best Live Action Short, and from that went beyond their own creative practice to support millions of teens by co-founding the Trevor Project, which you're probably all really aware of, right? The only nationwide lifeline to support LGBTQ plus youth. If anybody needs the lifeline for suicide prevention. So a really powerful thing. And also the Future Perfect Project, which is a national initiative designed to support LGBTQ youth to become the voice of tomorrow through creative art. I have 2 teens, and I raise them in Brooklyn. And we march all the time because of all the craziness in the world. And we see the Trevor Project everywhere. So that's a really significant outreach. I mean, they really grasp it's, such a powerful thing. And also raising teens in Brooklyn, my daughters are completely fearless about identity. And I hear from so many people of older generations that it's so unusual, but they are not only fearless, but empowered to identify as whatever sexuality they feel. So that's been incredible for me to raise kids and have all their friends feel the same way. It's been such an enormous positive impact that I'm sure you're seeing, and I know you're going to talk about it, so I won't. And you should all know that on Friday, there's a one-night solo performance at the Provincetown Art Society, and you should see if there's still tickets available. That you're doing, it's a benefit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, a benefit for them. So it is such a pleasure. I can't wait to hear from you myself.
Thank you, Kate. That's so nice. Always awkward to hear your life in retrospect. It was so hard. But now it's fun. We could do this right now. Are you ready? That's how it starts. That's what I say to the Aussie girl, or maybe she's a Kiwi. In any case, her accent is from down under, there, somewhere. She's a student at the college where I've been asked to speak. A person in the process of becoming. A senior about to be unleashed out into the impossible and unsuspecting world. An actor. Now, I've never cast a spell in public before, and honestly, it wasn't something I'd been planning. I didn't wake up that morning in my little cottage at the edge of the woods and think to myself, yeah, this is the day. This is the day I travel into the city and stand in a fluorescently lit classroom and reveal myself a fairy. I mean, I'd never seen her before. I didn't know her. I mean, all I knew is she was another would-be actor, willing to do whatever, to be seen and known in the light of who she believes herself to be. She wanted to know if any of us assembled on the panel had any experience with the whole visa situation. I'm time sensitive, she tells us. I've only got a year after graduation to get myself working, and then if I want to stay here in the States, I've got to somehow establish myself as an artist of exemplary talent. And I'm just wondering, how does a person become an artist of exemplary talent? One of my colleagues, a woman wearing a too tightly fitted business suit, offers her some advice and promises to connect her to an immigration lawyer, but I'm not hearing much of what's being said that morning because that morning my mind is elsewhere. You see, I just heard the news about the detention camps on the southern border that morning. And though I'm standing in a room full of would-be actors, I am a world away, thinking about the 2,342 children who've just been separated from their parents. The 1,400 boys who are currently being held in cages. Children who I imagine are also willing to do whatever to be seen and known in the light of who they believe themselves to be. And I can't help it, but the news has made me a little crazy. You know, the injustice is stuck like a scream at the back of my throat, and I want to yell at everyone assembled, have you heard the news this morning? Do you know what's happening right now? But I don't. Instead, I just sit there, listening as the Aussie girl talks about her dreams of becoming an actor. But then I'm thinking to myself, isn't this what we all wish for, in one way or another? To be seen and known in the light of who we believe ourselves to be. Who will give us this permission, we wonder? Who will see us as we are wanting to be seen? Oh, yeah, and when? By this time, my heart is all up in my ears, pounding and pumping to a rhythm that is as old as blood itself, because, yep, I know I'm going to do this thing. And because it is my turn to speak, I turn to face the Aussie girl, and I say to her, we can do this right now. Are you ready? She licks her lower lip. We lock eyes. Is this terror in her eyes, I see? Or wait. Is it her excitement for the what's to come, for the next new thing, for the thing that she's been hoping for? Could it maybe be here at last? All this time, has it been so close by, as close as this? And this is what the other students wonder as they take a deep collective breath and hold and wait while the clock on the wall ticks a single time-sensitive eternity. She replies, I'm ready. What? I'm ready. She's ready! And then with her consent, I have your consent, right? Oh, no, do I have your consent? Yes. Because magic doesn't work unless it's consent. Okay. With her consent, I open my palms. Palms flat, facing forward. It's just me and her now. And I am fully feeling the spell I am about to unleash upon this impossible and unsuspecting world. Poof, I say. You are an artist of exemplary talent. It starts today. But then, like any good fairy tale, there is a catch, a caveat, a condition. I tell her, you realize you'll have to say it every day. You'll have to say yes every day to being the artist of exemplary talent that today you believe yourself to be. Every day, you will be beginning to be the person you're wanting to become. Because let's face it, whether you are an artist of exemplary talent or just a human being standing on the border of that world and this, to be alive, to be truly alive, is to be becoming. We could do this right now. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. There you go. Poof. So, hi, everybody. And so begins Poof. That's how it starts. I'm doing the show. I'm having such a good time. It's such a fun thing to have been developing for the past couple of years. Like a lot of people, during the pandemic, it gave me a lot of opportunity to sit and think about what was important to me and what I wanted to do with my art and how I wanted to live the next thing if we ever came back from the pandemic. Like what I really wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do was to perform outdoors. So I started writing this piece about a fairy, me, and who really is troubled by the condition of the world. And it's a sort of a conflation of the history of fairies and the history of queerness, and how we survive by being invisible sometimes, by being helpful sometimes, by being connected to nature. And given the current climate crisis, we have spells and skills that we are wanting to share with y'all, and before things get really bad. So I started writing this piece, and I got a call from a theater in upstate New York, and they said, we want to commission you to write a piece and perform it outdoors in somebody's garden under a 200-year-old oak tree. And I was like, the magic's working. And then they said the magic words, but we only want you to do 20 minutes, which was so great because I had only written 20 minutes. So that was the first summer of that was in the middle of the pandemic. And then the following summer I came back and I sort of developed the show further, and then I came here last summer and I developed it at 20 Summers, and I did it at the Truro Vineyards, and I'm just coming back to do it one night at the Mary Heaton Vorse House as a benefit for the Provincetown Art Society, and then I'm taking the show to Edinburgh, to the Fringe Festival, for the month of August. So I'm really excited. I've never been to Edinburgh, so come on. Come on over to Edinburgh if you're feeling it. But I'm just going to do one other little piece for you. Because I can. This red pencil, my sometimes wand, I hold it here before you like the better half of a wishbone, like starshine, like the red-hot tip of a diviner's rod that quibbles its way to the source of all unwanting. Behold, this red pencil, or one just like it, has been with me for almost half my life, a succession of pencils that I have called upon in those moments when I was able to believe. This is how it works. Whenever a prayer of mine is answered, or an intention is made manifest, or a cause meets cute with its effect, I draw a small red star beside the hope that I wrote down weeks, maybe months, sometimes years before, on the page of a book that is never too far out of reach. In this book, my log of sweet successes, and sometimes misses, my litany of mostly yeses, wills, and wants, a record of my heart's desire writ large in real time, real space, has become a chronicle of star after star after star after star, 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 star. Like when that friend disappears down the chute of shame, otherwise known as his addiction, and for too many days in a row, his whereabouts become a source of wonder. What else could I do but get down on my knees and demand for days that he be found like Moses among the rushes, alive? And when, after a week of wonder and worry, he stumbles out of the dark of his denial and into the bright lobby lights of his apartment building, not knowing how the hell he got there, I decide that a miracle of this magnitude deserves a star. My way of saying thank you to whatever, and you're welcome. Or as she calls from the clinic, saying the words that will dispel the illusion of her good health. Stage 4, she says, choking on her fear. I tell her, we'll get through this, and we will. But not before I have said a million insistent prayers that sound a lot like, don't you fucking dare. And even though I'm not sure who the you is that I'm talking to, I know myself well enough. And I know that after 2 years, when the tests declare her cancer-free, I know that this is it. Yes, this is cause for celebration and a star. Or when the boy at 13 goes missing after burning down the house on Halloween. I make my prayer into a kind of lifeline, pulling my intention as taut as a tightrope, never doubting for a second that the boy will return to us a man. And though he takes his time, his eventual return is worthy of a star. And there are other desires, less altruistic, wants, wills that are less glamorous and more to do with me than I would be willing to admit. But while all these prayers are pulsing through my days, I am always right there with my pencil, ready to record the win. This is how the stars get made. But what happens when all together now we are stumbling out of the dark of our denial, only to discover that we are living at stage 4 in a house on fire? I cannot do this alone. I have come to the limits of my prayer. Because let's face it, I cannot, by myself, and this pencil cannot, by itself, rack up enough winds to bring us all back from the brink. We need you now. But even more than you, we need to know that the universe, or whatever you want to call it, is not deaf to our desires, but is shaped by them for sure. Wasn't it the Buddha who said, the world arises through the tip of intention? Meet me there. And praise be to whatever this impulse is within us that makes us, some of us, believe that we are in cahoots with something beyond our small s self, or causes us to dig down deep into our big S self and pull up proof, poof, we are not alone. And even though I cannot say who or what it is that can or might or will or does or doesn't respond in kind to my requests, entreaties, demands, hopes, prayers, and fierce determinations, this impulse within me that counts on a call and a response persists. Can I get an amen? Amen. So, if you should wake in the middle of the night, shook and sure that it is far too late for the likes of us, let's meet, you and me, out in the field before the sky begins to brighten. And standing there with the dew still heavy on your shoe tips, and our necks craning to the sky, let's count together, star after star, after star, after star, 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 star. Thanks. Encore. No, just kidding.
I mean, we could. All right, hold on a second. I think we need to give Celeste Lecesne another big round of applause. Thank you, Celeste. So wonderful. And don't forget, Friday night, you can see the whole thing at the Mary Heaton Vorse House. Starting at 6:30, there are postcards back there with all the information you need to attend, and I hope you will, because it'll be a wonderful experience for you. And it's in support of a good cause, which is to support the Provincetown Art Society. So check. And there's drinks and there's hors d'oeuvres. What could be better? Next, we're going to hear from visual artist Kate Clark. And to introduce Kate, I'd like to invite one of her students, Divya Anantharaman, up to the stage to introduce her. Divya, welcome. I hope I didn't
yesterday. So, hi everybody. The artist I get the honor of introducing is someone I have looked up to for years. When I first started to dabble in working with taxidermy and skin, I saw Kate's work and it took my breath away. Kate's work embodies many of the possibilities of this art form, aesthetically, technically, emotionally, and in how it makes us face human connection. The themes of liminality and hybridity resonate with me personally as a queer person exploring their identity, but more importantly, work like Kate's encourages everyone to see the world more expansively. In addition to how accomplished she is, Kate is extremely, extremely generous with her time. She regularly shows up for our community of taxidermy artists and just general weirdos in Brooklyn, and she is so enthusiastic with her guidance and care. And myself and many other people are very grateful to call her a mentor and a friend. In Kate Clark's world of art and sculpture, the human and animal worlds intermix, merge, and take on new forms of her own making. Of her artistic achievements, it has been said that her transformation from animal to human is what has her work viewed all over the world. This can be witnessed in her collaborations with Claudia Rankine, National Geographic, and Kanye West, among others. Contributing to works spanning multiple genres and media, she also has participated in exhibitions across the US, France, England, Korea, and Australia. After getting her BFA at Cornell and her MFA at the Cranbrook Academy of Art, she held solo shows with the Claire Oliver Gallery, the Mobile Museum of Art, and the Hilliard Museum. Her work has also been a part of the J.P. Morgan Chase Art Collection and the 21C Collection. She has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and New York Magazine. Kate Clark has also been awarded fellowships at the Gentle Artist Residency in Wyoming, the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, and the Marie Walsh Sharp Studio in New York. She is currently represented by Anima Mundi Gallery of England, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York. Yay, Kate!
Thank you so much, Divya. That was lovely. Thank you. So this will not be nearly as entertaining as the last performance. But in any event, I will talk about my work, and then a lot of things will come up in the Q&A. So feel free to ask questions at the end too. So this is my work. I've been making it for over 20 years. I'll kind of start with a construction of it, because that's a lot of the concept and a lot of where people have questions about the work. This is some of the work, so you can get a sense of it. I start by working with a model. In the very beginning, people used to ask if it was all me, and I really didn't like the concept of just making a ton of animals of me. So, and the other reason behind that, there are lots of reasons behind it, but the other thing is the work is very much about giving animals individual identity instead of grouping them in sort of the scientific way that we do. So this is an example of one of my models, and here I'm working on the piece. I make all the sculptures larger than human scale, because I really want the sculpture to dominate the viewer. I don't want that. I want the hierarchy to be very much about connecting with the sculpture, but letting it dominate the viewer instead of the other way around. This is really early work, and I'm kind of doing this for my students. I've always had a real interest in how the surface can be the narrative. So this is graduate school work where I made a monkey and covered it with a banana peel, and then made it about sort of this very short timeline of the animal's life as the banana peel rots. This was my really early work. My first piece ever is very experimental. I didn't know how to work with animal hide, and I didn't know how to sculpt a face. But I had this concept about how the human face became so communicative, and how that ability to read even the subtlest expression in a split second really helped develop our culture and civilization. So my graduate school was in Detroit. I was able to go purchase some taxidermy, and I just experimented on what features, how the human face came together and was so expressive. So what I like to show is that even though I've been making pretty much the same work for 20 years. It has developed a lot. So here's videos of that early piece and then here's my more recent work. So I have been able to learn how to work with the leather and how to sculpt the face and use a model and try to make more sort of uncanny and powerful work. This piece I start with because it really sort of encompasses a lot of what I talk about in the work. First of all, I got the hides from a zoo, which was wonderful. I do work with really professional taxidermists to get hides, mostly that are damaged, so I'm upcycling them to talk about this completely different thing, this connection that we have with animals. And but this one's also called Entangled, and so it's two rearing zebra, and they're both in the act, in this sort of violent act, but also in this really intimate act. It's from certain angles, it almost looks like they're gonna kiss. And so I do like to talk about how the human psyche is so incredibly complex that we can both really love and revere animals and really only identify ourselves as humans by comparing ourselves to animals, like how incredibly intrinsic it is in our lives, and then at the same time be so violent, towards the environment and animals themselves. So it's such a complicated thing, the way we do all of that. So this one is called The Ghost. So I kind of wanted to backtrack. I did want to talk about, oops, sorry, I meant to have an extra slide that's not there, so I'm going to settle on this one. As I create the face, so my daughter who's in the audience sat for this piece. It's really, not that one. It's really rare to get a baby hide. Obviously you can't kill a baby, but there's something so gentle that it is sort of an additional plus. They also have really translucent skin, so it's really has this beautiful glow. A lot of the work is about making sure that when you're in front of the work, it's sort of this undeniable suggestion that we are connected, because the skin has oils and pores just like ours. So as I shave it and leave some of the animal features but also shave the skin, there is that really sort of incredible energy and connection that's undeniable in front of the work. I sculpt it by taking very specific pieces like the eyelids. A lot of animals have unbelievable eyelashes, and so that's such an important part. And so I sew the leather. I sculpt the face. I use rough leather because I don't want the clay to get in the leather that I'm working on. I use rough leather until it's resolved, and then I put the animal's real facial skin back over the face. And I stitch and pin it. I stitch it with cotton thread and then pin it because the leather will dry just enough to show the seams. But I'm also pinning the entire time I'm sculpting because it shows the volume. The patchwork can make it really flat while I'm sculpting. But I also, the work is always about balance, and I really want that balance of recognizing the construction, sort of it's undeniably there, and but also believing in the life of the piece. So you have that sort of back and forth of getting this uncanny lifelike connection and then recognizing the construction and hopefully recognizing that that was the skin that was the animals just transformed. So sorry, now I have to jump again real quick. Come on. So beyond just the hybridity of human and animal, which when I started this work, that was all people could manage. Like, it was really hard to get people to not reject and resist the work right away. Hybridity was like a monster thing, and really, not celebrated. And it's amazing how in 20 years things can change so much, and now everything in every direction is about celebrating hybridity, as Divya also mentioned, through gender and different hybridity of race and everything else that right now this super open-minded generation is celebrating. So this one is called The Ghost. This is the one that model was sitting for. So I do add narrative for myself besides. So a lot of times the one on the top is my sister. She always gets stuck with a very masculine hide and horns. So that was a big wildebeest with the big horns, but I tend to make a lot of the pieces have a feminine identity, even if it has the hide and horns of a masculine animal. So this one's called The Ghost, and it's just about having something with you all the time, whether it's a memory of a person or a memory of an experience, or even just like a primal memory that comes up that you're surprised by. This one's called Twins, and it's about the simple hybridity of having two parents, which we all have. So the middle antelope is an African antelope, and the side antelopes are what's called an American antelope, a pronghorn. And again, you almost always get the male hide. That's just what's hunted. So when I make it a female, I'm always making that switch, whether people are aware of it or not. It's amazing that people don't know that the males are the ones with the horns, but that's okay. I was saying to Sarah that I didn't want to go after Celeste because I'm going to be talking about how I work alone in the studio. It's just like such a different approach, but I have been really lucky about showing my work in museums. I've had museums reach out. I've done 30 different museum shows, some mainly group, some solo. But this one was really special. This was at the Getty Museum, and they reached out to me very politely. And this was Texan in that incredible museum was amazing. And then here, just a couple, this was a museum in Paris and a museum in Melbourne. So that's been a pleasure to just, have different reactions from all over the world and get feedback in that way. And I've gotten to collaborate. That's another way that I've gotten out of the studio and been able to sort of see how my work fits into the general culture. This is Claudia Rankine's book. The writers here may know, most people may know her, but she reached out to me. She was lovely and wanted to use my work. She wrote about it so beautifully as she wrote in Bomb magazine about how in Black culture they have this idea that there's always the ancestor in your room that's reminding you of what you've been through. So I created a piece for her which she named Prey, on the play of the word pray and P-R-E-Y, saying that she had suffered from being prey to other people, and that's sort of a historical problem. But then I made this really beautiful piece, and then she wanted this older piece. She said, I really want this awkward little piece. She ended up using the other piece. That was the one in the Getty, so it had a good life, even though it didn't get to be in Claudia's book. But, and when she wrote the book, she said, it was sort of a negotiation on, she would pay me for the hide, and I would make the piece specifically for her. And she said, no, I'm never going to make that money back. No one's going to see this book. And I don't know if you know, but this book is celebrated around the world. And she won the MacArthur Genius Award for it. I also, at the same time, this all kind of happened at the same time, I got to do a documentary with National Geographic, which took a very different play on the work. It was 2 months of filming for 4 minutes. So although I was super nervous about it, the woman's like, I'm going to edit the heck out of this, so don't worry, you can say whatever you want. But that was really lovely. I had this super enthusiastic producer that just gave me the thumbs up the whole time we were filming. And she did make it, sort of about the, humans and animals and how we are involved in the animal kingdom. And then this, I'm sorry to put Kanye's face up on the screen. It was a long time ago, but I was approached by this 18-year-old and Kanye's producer to do this mask for the video Panda. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it has 450 million views. The song was like a summer hit, and Kanye was involved, which was, a super exciting and ended up being a really good experience. But luckily, I never had to meet Kanye. He stayed away, and then everything went downhill from there with him. Fine for me, but this is a more recent video that I did with a younger artist. Her name's Kay, and it was just a super fun collaboration. And then this is a sneak peek. This is a street artist in Brooklyn. He's actually mainly all over the Lower East Side, but I love his work so much, and it's just, I never have any humor in my work, and that's a problem for me. And so this will hopefully release in September, and so he did a series of his work and my work, which I love so much. And so this is my most recent work. I have always sort of, people ask me, how can you work with animals? How can you work with hide? How do you honor it? And I've always, really every time you receive a hide and get it, I'm sure you feel the same way. You pull this thing out of a box, and then the belly has pink fur, and, there's things that you would never expect. The zebras had stripes going down the tail, and it's such a cool thing to celebrate, and to let other people see that up close also. But, so I always had them stand in very dignified positions and never did anything that, made them vulnerable. But I had a show recently, and I was really spending too much time with my work looking at it, and I decided I really needed to change it up. So for this one, I actually stenciled the patterning. So I just cut out a paper stencil and took an X-Acto and scraped away the hide, so it is still intrinsic, it's still in the piece. But it's called the Sweet Spot, and I just wanted it to have different levels of balance, where it's not just the hybrid, not just androgynous, but also playful. I had people say it looks like the death of Marat, and I had people say it looks like their dog when they come home, like this. So I just wanted all of those qualities. I left the genitals on, I never do that. But, the body was so feminine, and then, so that's my direction now that I've been. Thanks.
Now we're going to do a Q&A, so you can come back up. Celeste, if you wouldn't mind, we'll get you set up for a Q&A. Do a little thing here. That's the screen going up.
Oh my God. I'm just going to say how great your work is. Isn't that amazing? So beautiful. Yeah, well, I was before. But,
Switch.
Excuse me for jumping in, but I'm just so crazy about your work. It's just so fun. You use the word uncanny, and it just is so uncanny.
Thanks.
And I when I first, when I realized we were going to be doing this together, I just thought about how we're sort of we're both in our way extending the human experience into the sort of almost magical, right? Because your pieces they seem so magical.
Oh, thank you. That's it. I mean, of course, that's my favorite read of the work. But, I'm super intimidated by all you've done. And I feel like the power of visual art is that it can just make this little suggestion, and that's all you can do. You don't have to back it up. But you get to just make a suggestion and see how people respond to it, which I'm sure, you're so much more aware of how your audience responds. So that's kind of an amazing thing.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But when you go to a museum, you see how people respond,
Yeah.
don't you?
I do. The most important thing is that kids really respond well to the work. They're used to hybrid, they're used to anthropomorphized stuff, so they go for it, they touch. They're like, they're into it. So.
Good start. Any questions from our audience for Kate or Celeste? Just remember to, if you ask a question, wait for Sarah Miracle to get to you with a microphone, because we're streaming the event. And we want everybody at home to hear the question.
Hi, I was very moved by both, and the great thing about I've known Kate's work for a while, and it was amazing to see how both of you actually exploded the world and made it much bigger and smaller at the same time. You all are talking about the universe, everything that we as people walk on this earth and do, and it's to connect us with the animals is always there, but the reality is to be yourself in this world is an exceedingly difficult thing, and it's really from the specific you've gone into the universal, and both of you complimented each other beautifully, and that was really just a comment to say, but I think you both think about that, and it was really nice to hear Kate talk about your specifics. I don't care, but I love it. I love watching you perform, and then it's like when you turn it off, it's not really off, and then it's off, and then it's on, and and that's the part that both of you are connecting us to our lives. And that is the best gift you could possibly do. So I'm just here to say thanks. It's
Thanks,
really
Bob.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
so nice. Thank you. You know, can I just respond to it? Just the thing it makes me think about is there's this beautiful thing that Elizabeth Gilbert, you know, the writer Elizabeth Gilbert said. She said that magic is simply knowing what wants to happen next. And I think that, you know, as artists, I loved what you said about 20 years ago, you couldn't get people to look at it. And I feel like 25 years ago, I couldn't get people to think about queer young people having a sexual or gender experience. It just was not on the table. People just were, like, we all knew it in ourselves, like we all knew from our own experience, but it was sort of like the taboo within the queer world. You didn't talk about kids. You just didn't, like, you didn't go there, or you'd be branded a groomer or a pedophile or something, which they're now doing again. And I just feel like, you know, to be an artist is to actually be forging something because you know it's true. It's just that there aren't enough people to get on board. I don't know. It sounds like you've had that experience too.
Yes. But I always kept telling myself the resistance is part of it. You know, like for me, I feel like one reason the work, like I've really pushed the sort of natural believability of it and the detail is because I want people to just spend more than 30 seconds. And I feel like if they do stand there and they resist it and then they come around to it, then that's meaningful just in itself, you know. And I'm sure, like I was saying about my kids, I mean, there's no question. These kids are proud. These kids, you know, like they, and it's amazing as a parent, you know, to be like, phew, you know, that's not going to be a struggle. That's going to be a celebration, you know. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
Garrett.
what. Oh, sorry, that's so loud. I love what both of y'all are saying about. Let me stand up so you can see me. What y'all are saying about resistance and that being part of the artistic process. Actually, I mean, I don't think we talk about that a lot, at least anymore. You know, it feels as though, I guess, it's interesting to me to ask this question from like a teaching perspective, with such instant gratification or instant audience reaction, right? Whether it be positive or negative. You know, there's no time for someone to go into a gallery or watch a performance all the way through and make up your mind, maybe halfway through, like, I don't like this, now I do, or I like this, and now this is sort of making me think something else, which is what art often does. What kind of, I guess, lessons or advice would you want to pass down to people who are starting out in their artistic process and are in a very different world and almost a different medium whenever they release it? Sorry, that's like a big question, but I think y'all are perfectly great at addressing big questions. So.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, what we have to tell them is it's about perseverance. You know, it's like the same old story. It's just, you know, like I was saying, the past 20 years, I've been through the extreme of people reacting to the work. And now I have to, like, up it because people are over it and they want to say something pushing the limits more. I mean, I've had students ask me that. How can you afford the space? How can you afford to make such big work? Why didn't you start small? But that was the concept, and I just stuck with it. I mean, it's pretty much impossible to say why, right? You just did it. I hate to look back, but yeah, I think instant gratification is very problematic now. I'm completely guilty of it. And the size, you know, like now that everything's shrunk down to this big, it's very hard to get your point across. But I still read. I read every night. I think there is, you know, there always will be that cycle of dissatisfaction when something gets grotesque, and that's where we're heading, right? And so hopefully there will be a primal shift back to, you know, actually quality time with things, hopefully.
You know, I think the perseverance thing is really the only thing that you could really tell anybody. But People don't listen anyway. I mean, and really, I think for me, I've always tried to keep my why bigger than my how. Like, I don't know that I can ever figure out how to do anything, but I know why I want to do something, and I love it. I love what I do. And even when it was, like, if we had all night, I would tell you the craziest things that I have done in order to perform, in order to be able to get my work in front of people. And nothing would stop me over the years. Like, nothing would stop me. And people would be like, you need to stop. Like, this is sad now, right? Like, it wasn't always like, oh my God, he's doing all these things. It was like, stop. But I just was obsessed with an idea that I had that I got when I was like 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, when I decided that is what I want to do. And I may have to do other things, but that is what I'm going to do. And nobody lets you do anything. Like, you have to basically tell them you're doing this, and then make it clear why you're doing it, and express your love of that thing. And that's what I see. And the perseverance comes from. It comes from your love of why you need to do this thing. And I really feel like it goes back to what. Thank you for saying that, because for me, it was always about, if I could be my most authentic self in front of people, it would inspire other people to say, oh, that looks like fun. That looks like something I want to try, even though I may get hurt, right? And that was my why. Perseverance.
My question isn't very profound, it's more practical, not knowing anything about taxidermy. How do you conserve your work? I mean, what's going to happen 50, 60 years from now? Or is that part of your process? Because I don't know anything about that, but maybe you've learned along the way.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, it's really not that, it's not what it used to be. It's not stuffed with straw and, it's actually just a foam form with the hide glued on and, whoops, sewn on. That's my phone. It's okay. And I did have to learn. I was very frustrated when I got those zebra. I had them re-tanned, and the tannery said to me, make sure when you re-soak the leather, you use warm water. And the guy was actually being really condescending, because he handed this to me saying, you're never going to make these zebra. And I was like, I'm going to make them. But he said, and I had never used warm water. I'd always used cold water, just water. And then the stretch when you use warm water is like double. It's like, oh my God. So I've been a little stupid about sort of being self-taught, but I know I have to ship the work internationally. I have to ship it, I have to promise a collector that it's going to hold up. So I have been very careful. I have some really amazing people I turn to. Divya works with George Dante, who's like this incredibly celebrated taxidermist. And so he's been an incredible source. So I've had to find sources who help me. I have a friend who makes the glues that are non-toxic. I did it through both pregnancies. It's really a much cleaner process than you think, right? It's pretty clean. And very kindly, these two women from the Museum of Natural History came to my studio with their students and said that they have tested the form. That's, there's one thing to be very careful with the hide. You have to make sure there's no fat, so because bugs will come get it. They'll eat the roots and the fur falls out. But they said that the forms, there's a monopoly, unfortunately, in the world of taxidermy, and they all come basically from one company. Some are archival, some are not, but once you put the hide over it, it's archival. So when I first started, taxidermy.net was, super masculine, super toxic, but people like Divya have joined the ranks, and it's a much more positive, open, learning, it's a better place. So I feel pretty confident now. I learned the hard way to have perfect paperwork. I've tried to ship work internationally that didn't go. So yeah, it's definitely a huge part of this work. You know, people say, why don't you not use real leather? But when you're in front of the work, it has to be. That is basically the concept, is that this is something that's transformed, and we can see how we connect to it. So yeah, there's a lot of learning curve and pitfalls with this material. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Both of you are brilliant. But I am fascinated where you get a zebra from. I mean, and do you stop when there's roadkills and things? I mean, do you, it's a whole new world for me. And there must be, like, doesn't everyone want the zebra from the zoo? How do you do it?
Well, generally, as I mentioned, I work with hides that are damaged or just older. Nobody's willing to work with them because they don't have the full stretch. So I have a couple really excellent people who know that I'll take a damaged hide, so they do reach out to me. In this case with the zebras, I was looking for something. I rarely look for things. I can't use anything exotic, like nothing with spots. I make the work exotic enough, but I'm happy to take the hide with the smaller horns or the damage. But I was looking for hyena for a proposal for PS1, and he said, I don't have hyena, but I have 2 life-size zebra from a zoo with perfect paperwork. And they were really, really expensive, you know, but it just was such an irresistible investment, and I had, you know, was able to use that concept of them rearing. When you get a form, you can change it. There's only one rearing form, and I didn't want them to be identical, and I wanted them to interlock. So that's another part that I actually forgot to talk about, that I do have to.
What do you mean by the form? You just get
You buy a foam already already perfectly made form. And so the hide gets glued onto the form. But you have to sand that form. And you don't want to take it down too much. So for example, I would pin the zebra hide along the back and stretch it and have 9 inches of belly still. So I have to carve it down. And then I'd spend 2 days and I'd stretch it. I'd have 8.5 inches. I would have to keep working on it. So that one was challenging, but worthwhile, you know. So yeah, when you delve into it's a kind of fascinating world of taxidermy. And luckily, a few years ago, a bunch of books came out talking about the whole history. So that's nice to be able to tell people, you know, that it was at one point just exotic princes who got to own this cool stuff, and then it became museum. You know, celebrated in museums to show the world animals from different places, and then it sort of has its moment now. But is that answer your
Yeah,
question?
there's a million questions, but I mean, there must be a black market in animal pelts and all. And
I'm sure there is, and I get to stay away from that. I have a license. I talk to Fish and Wildlife. I don't make that many pieces, you know, so I'm not like knocking through hides. And there's this kind of beautiful thing in the art world right now that it's always cyclical, and so it used to be so offensive, and now people are recognizing that kind of plastic, you know, that people using unnatural stuff is kind of detrimental, and these hides are sort of biodegradable, you know. So I always used to worry, I soak everything in all these plastic bags. I'm like, all these plastic bags, you know, like that seemed more dangerous than using the animal hide itself. But I have to be totally above board with all that stuff because I ship it.
Nothing is really harvested, like it's already.
Oh yeah.
Just explain that. Just.
Yeah, it's important. I worked with a gallery, and they used to tell all these weird tales about how I was the hunter, just sort of poking at their clientele, and I'm like, please stop. That's so ridiculous. And I grew up in Connecticut. I had nothing to do with hunting. It really just started as a concept in grad school about where our connection was with animals. So yeah, I rarely even request certain animals, but I certainly don't hunt them. And almost everything I get is just shelved that's not going to be used in any other way. So, and that's important, and people always write that as one of the first lines in the article. When I did that panda mask for that video, right after the video, what was it? Anyway, an article came out. I'm forgetting who it was, but they immediately said, "This is not panda hide," and I'm like, "Thank you so much for clarifying that's not panda hide on this. It was black bear and antelope." But yeah, of course, it's touchy.
Who are you? Like, who did you collab with, or going to collab with? That you said that was like the drawing, and you said it was on the Lower East Side.
Oh, that's Frank Ape. So Frank Ape is a street artist, and he is a lovely person named Brandon, and he just does the most joyful street art. It's not edgy, but it's like, it is edgy, you know, in his own way, but he is so dynamic, and he got into the NFT space, which then dove down, but he was super successful with Gap. He's got all the Gap shirts, and we agreed to do this collaboration for an NFT for a charity, and we all chose our charities, and then the market dropped. So he's been holding on to those cool images. There are others that I can show you. They're super fun, but hopefully we'll release them at some point soon. But those are the kind of things that I find, I mean, I could not envision how we were going to collaborate, and he's like, "Look at this, and look at this, and look at this." So that's been super fun.
This is a question for Celeste. Celeste, I love how you talked about the why of what you do, and I'm so curious to hear how you think about your youth development work within your creative practice and how that sits alongside or informs or speaks to your own personal performance work and writing.
Oh, thanks. That's so. For those of you who don't know, I started as Kate was saying, I started the Trevor Project, but about 6-7 years ago, I started something called the Future Perfect Project, because I saw young people had changed so radically. 6 or 7 years ago, they were just coming into high school. They were so different. I'd never seen anything like it. I feel truly like the queer young people of the moment starting. It really is like almost 25 years old is the cutoff point. And anything below that, it's like a different brain. It really is like unprecedented in the history of the human species, that they are so incredible. They are just incredible. And there's a narrative out there that young people are all depressed and suicidal, and you know, they're all on their phones, and they're like, you know, and they are. And but there's another narrative out there that they are incredibly resourceful. They are incredibly informed. They are the future of the world, and they got it. Like, I just want to hand it over to them right now. Because they actually understand diversity and inclusion. They have an incredibly powerful ability to hope. You know, they have a social justice component that I've never seen in people so young. And I think being fed this constant, steady stream of dopamine from their phones has informed their brains. And they're like, "I got it. Don't worry. I got it." And they're not, and the other thing is, it's the first time I've worked, after, 30 years I've been working with young people, and so that's why I'm so excited about this, is that they have a sense of history. They know that what came before them, like especially with the queer young people. They know that there were people who actually fought for them to be who they are. And they know that there are people coming up behind them, and they have a responsibility to that. And that is extraordinary to me in people so young. So how it relates to my performance work, I didn't want to make anything that was, that didn't address the fact that we are headed for something huge in this world, and we are pretending that it's not happening. And one of the ways that we're pretending and that we deal with that, the fact that there's something huge coming down the pike, is we've extinguished our hope. We just don't have any. We're like, oh, it's over. Oh, my God. We've got, what, 10 years? Oh, God. But nobody's, like, engaging with their hope. Not nobody, but, like, young people are. They just are like, what else am I going to do? Like, we got to, you know, and we're going to have to fix this mess on top of everything else. And so I feel that my job now is, like with Poof, which is really the whole purpose of doing the show, is to ignite in people this, we've got to find our hope. And we have to be unembarrassed about it. And it's not cool to be hopeful. And I'm not talking about optimistic, it's all going to turn out well, because we know it's not going to turn out well. But we have to be hopeful and do something, and we have to engage our sense of, this is a fight we have to fight, and it's worth fighting for, whatever the outcome is. So I just feel crazy. I feel crazy in love with the world and with the natural world, and I want to see that some of it can make it through, you know, and that we do everything we can. And we're not going to do anything if we don't have hope. And I know for myself, and I'll shut up, I know for myself that the young people that I work with have given me a sense of hope. And I think that's why people don't like to hang out with young people so much. I'm always available. Because they make you think about the future in a different way. Like, they don't have the luxury of saying, like, maybe, we only have 10 years, right? They force you, and I find that I'm much more engaged in my work, much more engaged in social activism because of hope. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you.